Hello and welcome to ANC Decides, the show that gives you up-to-the-minute reports, commentary and analysis building up to the ANC's December elective conference. I'm your host, Mfundo Mabalani. Let's take a look at your headlines. ANC deputy unveils the new deal to turn the economy around, but captains of industry backing him raise eyebrows about capital's influence on the race. The nominations window for the ANC presidential nominations is about to close. So far, 70% of ANC structures have concluded their BGMs in time for the November 15 deadline. ANC Women's League NEC endorses Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma as the next ANC president. ANC Women's League says Dlamini Zuma is the best candidate to champion radical economic transformation. Big Business Open endorsement of deputy presidential candidate Ramaphosa has sparked debate about captains of industry influencing internal ANC electoral processes.
Captains of industry are throwing their weight behind ANC Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa's campaign, and his message resonates with big business.
There is therefore, in my view, a need for a decisive new approach. We need what I would call a new deal for South Africa, a new deal for jobs, a new deal for growth, a new deal for transformation that will turn the economy of our country around and build a much more equal society. And this new deal will and must bring together government, business, labor and civil society.
However, other leaders in government view this with suspicion and suggest that there's more than meets the eye to this open endorsement by business.
Former colonial countries wanted to influence former colonies in one form or the other for their own interests. You know, in Africa for quite a few decades, there used to be coup d'etats in Africa, but they were engineered by people from outside. In other words, to change government.
Meanwhile, Ramaphosa's main rival in the hotly contested race, Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, is unfazed about the lack of support from this sector of the economy.
I'm not surprised that white monopoly capital is not endorsing me. I'm not surprised. I would have been surprised if they had endorsed me. We cannot be told our people must be poor forever because investors will not come.
The stakes are high in the 2017 ANC race that is set to change the trajectory of the country. The jury is out on how much capital can influence the ultimate outcome. Bureau Report, ANN 7.
We now cross over to our reporter Giovanni Majani. Giovanni, a warm welcome to you. What exactly is the feeling on the ground, particularly around Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa's new deal that he spoke of yesterday?
Good afternoon to you, Mfunda, and good afternoon to the viewers. It seems that money is a very big talking point, especially on the ground, with obviously campaigns needing to be backed by some sort of sponsors. We do know that posters need to go up, T-shirts are being made, locations need to be booked, and a number of things need to take place just for the meetings where they are campaigning. So it seems that money plays a big part in the campaigns of these presidential hopefuls. In regards to Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa, who we do know is in the presidential race going into December, this new deal that he has set out to have made does not deter the ANC delegates here in the Free State, in the region of Lejweleputsha, who are going to be voting come December. They say it's one of those things that come with the politics of being part of the ANC, and they are responsible, they are diligent, and their voting will obviously obviously prove just as what they are saying. We do know that this money also impacts a number of things. I mean, on the ground, looking in, it does have a he said, she said, knowing the kind of terminology such as state capture that has taken and is trending in South Africa. So all eyes are on the presidential hopefuls going into December. What kind of things can this money do for them? But due to the delegates speaking here in the Free State, saying that at their BGMs they have read two documents, one being Through the Eye of the Needle, which is how they will be nominating their leadership, as well as the responsibility of nominating and selecting a leadership for the ANC come December. And we do know, obviously, that the leadership being the chair of the Free State, Dr. Ace Magashule, as well as a province that we've also been looking at being the Northwest, the chair there being Supra Mahumapelo, and the South African president, President Jacob Zuma, they have stated that money will always be involved when it comes to choosing leadership, when it comes to the organization of the ANC. But if you need that money, take that extra 200 Rand, but do not forget where your heart lies. Do not forget the mandate of the ANC, and do not let that 200 Rand or that extra money you're putting into your pocket deter you from putting that X in the right spot.
No, thank you very much, Giovanni. We'll certainly keep in touch as days progress. Now, in studio today, we're joined by political analyst Papano Pasha and Adil Nchebeleng, and via Skype, we're joined by Professor Andre Duvenacher. Now, welcome to all of you.
Thank you.
Now, perhaps to start with you, Adil. We're talking here about money. When we're talking about the so-called factional paraphernalia that they're talking of, it all costs money to get those T-shirts and caps. Is it really a case that there possibly are people that are really funding most of these campaigns?
I think it is beyond doubt that there is money flowing within this campaign, particularly for actually the presidential candidate for the ANC. If you have seen yesterday in Orlando, it was clearly demonstrated and actually displayed that white monopoly capital is quite interested in the outcome of the ANC National Policy Conference, which will be held in December. And as a result, they have already pinned their really sort of must on the candidate of their choice, which has actually been Cyril Ramaphosa, who is the deputy president today in South Africa. And you have seen the arrival of strong white monopoly capital business barons who actually arrived there, who are not even industrialists. These are just bankers. These are oligarchs in South Africa who are controlling a lot of industries through money and the banking cartels that they are currently controlling in South Africa. Investec, Stephen Kosef was there. You have First Rand, Johan Berger was there. You have, in terms of Goldman Sachs, for that matter,
yes,
the surprising factor. Colin Coleman was there. And, you know, a cartoon of other white monopoly capitalists who were actually going in there to show their power, to say that we are bringing our money, we're bringing our capital, and as a result, the support we are throwing behind our candidate should be clearly indicative that we are behind this particular person, being currently the Deputy President, Mr. Ramaphosa. What it means in South Africa is, one, it's very concerning. You have 6 other candidates who have no money and are really running on a shoestring budget, and who are running for the particular vote that is a vote within the ANC. Remember, this is not a vote for South Africa's interest. It is a vote for the members of the ANC, those who identify with the party, those who say that we want this movement to guide us as a movement and a collective that is going to talk from a collective point of view. So when you start seeing presidential candidates that are so loaded with capital, particularly coming out of the stock exchange, capital coming out of white monopoly capitalists, and interests that are foreign, for instance. Goldman Sachs is not a South African company, it's an international US-based operation. But
let's rope in Professor
Africa.
Andre Duvenacher on this one as well. Professor, your take, I mean, what we saw in Orlando, in Soweto yesterday, that economic colloquium, or economic indaba, if you like, the company that the deputy president is keeping, can it really assist his campaign if he's going to Orlando, Soweto with the likes of Stephen Kosef and your Colin Coleman? Will they really assist him, or is it perhaps to his benefit to say that I'm in good books with these people and we can transform Soweto? How does it work for him?
Good afternoon, Mfondu and listeners. I think I disagree with the previous analysis to a certain extent, that this is not only about white monopoly capital. This is about capital in general, and not also local capital, but international capital that is involved here. and without any doubt, finances and capital will play a very important role in this election. And I think what we have seen is Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa mobilizing the business sector behind his initiative. And that is very important to get business behind you, especially in this very difficult financial circumstances. And that is also the origin of his so-called New Deal, which remind us a bit of Franklin D. Roosevelt and others. So I think there may be some reaction against this, but this is also a good move to get business behind you.
Papano, your take? I mean, here referencing Franklin Roosevelt, many said when he's talking about it's time to strike that New Deal. Do you think perhaps he's positioning himself as that bridge between the capital and those without?
Well, it's a difficult one, but perhaps just to take you back to Mangaung, if you recall at the National Conference, cell phones were not allowed at the voting booth, precisely because the NEC, had anticipated that delegates would be bought. But what we saw yesterday, it is an indictment, because in the past 23 years, corporate South Africa has not played ball. So now if they go to Soweto, what is their interest? What are they doing in Soweto? And when they're saying that they support Cyril Ramaphosa, to what end in particular? Look, the fact that you would have presidential candidates in the ANC giving out T-shirts, it tells you a lot. It tells you that the ANC must really introspect. It tells you that perhaps the ANC has gone beyond that organization, which talks about ideas where leaders are nominated because of the ideas that they stand for. I mean, for example, if you listened to the speeches that were made yesterday about the new economic idea, it does not necessarily speak to the poorest of the poor or using the state to change the lives of the people. What it seeks to say, or what it seeks to assert, is the interest of Business South Africa. Business South Africa does not care about ordinary South Africans. And if you had conscious Sowetans, they would have kicked them out. They would have kicked them out because Business South Africa has been exploiting ordinary South Africans.
But is this not the time, Papano? Because we've went to a number of these events where the ANC is pleading with big business to come to the table and have conversations and find out what role they can play. So there yesterday, they came and they went to the heart of South Africa. They went to Soweto. So here we are. Are you going to criticize them? Or this is the first step of them saying, we want to be part of the solution?
Okay, look, why would they want to be part of the solution now? The problems in South Africa have permeated for a very long time. It can't be that they are coming on board now. If you
do we take them to task for that,
yes,
or do we just applaud it and say, here you are today? Because if we talk about why now, then people will just never come to the party.
Adele, if I might close, if I might try to close this, it can't be a question of why now. It's a question of what is your interest. Remember, Cyril has said it repeatedly. Stephen Kosef has said it repeatedly. For example, he's not pro-free education. He's not pro the mining charter. He's not pro all the policies which seek to change the lives of ordinary South Africans. So his interest is to ensure that investors benefit. It's not about ordinary South Africans.
Yes, I do.
I think Papano has just actually said it very nicely. You must understand that business does not pay for anything that is not going to receive its value. They are paying for a value. They are hoping for a beautiful Christmas present that is going to be given to them. And the Christmas present will be in the sense that their candidate of choice will have won. But understand that if you start having an organization that is broadly represented by grassroots people, which is the ANC in this case, and then on the other side you have an oligarchy that actually controls what policy goes into it. Business South Africa has never supported the ANC policies. For many years, they've been in opposition to many of the policies that were implemented. And that is why today we're sitting with an NDP that is unimplementable because business refuses to come to the table. So what is going to change when you have now business interfering in terms of policy making within the ANC? So money is not going to be the route that is actually going to solve the problems within the ANC. The ANC requires decisive leadership with its own internal ingrown capital, that it can create a proper socialist society that is based on democratic principles that will look after the interest of the poor, which are the majority of South Africa. Right now, Capital is the minority and yet enjoys the benefits of the majority. It is unacceptable that you would have money be dictator to what political outcomes should be. We know how much money so far has been spent in particularly these campaigns. The other campaign actually leaders, which are presidential nominees, as I've indicated to you, they don't have that much money. But it's very strange how people have somehow, through their heart connection, gravitated to those candidates. You have candidates, for instance, like Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, who people have just warmed up to her because of her authenticity. You have candidates like actually Minister Jeff Radebe, who people have just gravitated towards him just because of his honesty and openness. But there is no money being used.
We don't know about whether there is money
votes.
or not, but perhaps on the face of it, they haven't been in the company of capital. That's all we can say. But do we know
most of the candidates openly say they don't have the money? They have never even kept it a secret. They say they are actually using volunteer-based support and people individually who are actually assisting the campaigns, coming forward and saying, we will do X, Y, Z on our own accord without even bringing money. So there is actually quite a very concerning. If the ANC is going to be taken over and become like an Americanized organization that is dictated by the whims of capital, then they might as well start picking up and actually agreeing that they can join up in power with opposition and be like the DA that actually only responds to the biggest funders. In this case, it is not the case. The ANC is a grassroots movement that looks after the interests of the people, and money and capital cannot be the dictates because the population of South Africa does not have that money.
Professor Duvenaka, do you believe that perhaps at this point we will be surrendering policy formulation to capital? That is the present that they're expecting after this elective conference?
No, I differ completely. My view is that in difficult financial times like this, we need business to become the engine of our economy, to create jobs, to invest in our economy and to build. It is not the masses that are creating the jobs, it is the business and the business sector. And now we need to ask the question as well. We know that the Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma camp receive support also from state capital, and there are rumors going around also from other sectors in the economy. And my take on it is that this is not fundamentally different from what Cyril Ramaphosa and his campaign is doing. The short and the long of the story is we need business to create jobs. We need business to pay taxes. Without taxes, the poor is going to be in an even worse position. You just need to ask the question, which countries are the rich countries in the world where the living standard is the highest? And this is by far not the same. Economies where there are private initiative, where we have economic growth rate, maybe in a certain context developmental, and that is even applicable to the Chinese.
Thank you very much, Professor, for that. Well, we now cross over to our reporter, Nomusa Pungula. Nomusa, what is the feeling on the ground there in terms of big business endorsing the deputy president? Will it be helping or foiling his chances to succeed in that presidential race?
Well, good evening, Fundo, and good evening to our viewers. According to some of the ANC members we spoke to earlier on, funding a presidential candidate by big businesses does not necessarily have to have a negative impact. But the most important question that people should ask is that at what conditions are those presidential candidates being funded by those particular big businesses for? Is it because of the principle, or is it because of the present that they are going to get after the election should their preferred candidates win? But also, Mfundo, another big question to ask is that who are those people that are funding those particular presidential candidates, and at what position do they see themselves after the elections? But joining me to elaborate further on the matter is the KZN Youth League chairperson, Kwazi Mshengu. Kwazi, we have seen the presidential candidates being alleged to be funded by some big businesses. What is your view on big businesses funding presidential candidates' campaign to perhaps influence the succession rates? Do you think that it will have an impact on the succession rates, or it's just them giving their money away?
Well, firstly, the funding of the presidential candidates by big businesses seeks to undermine the internal democracy and the will of the branch membership of the ANC. But the negative impact of it is that it also seeks to exert some kind of level of influence to that particular candidate. But in terms of the electoral outcome, we don't believe that it will have a determining factor as to who emerges in the upcoming conference. We think the will of the people, the will of the branches of the ANC will emerge. What is unfortunate is then what will be the account of those people who have taken monies, because at the end of the day, they must account for those monies. The monies that are being invested by big businesses, they are for future purposes, that in case you win, you must therefore pay back in terms of influence. It's all about basically exerting influence post the conference.
Well, thank you so much, Kwazi. That was the ANC Youth League KZN chairperson just elaborating on what he thinks about the funding of big businesses for the presidential candidates. But also, Mfundo, just to add on what he said, is that you must understand that there have been concerns regarding some people who have now been called chief lobbyists, who are being paid by these people that are funding the presidential candidates or the campaigns. But we are waiting to see as to how far will those money have an impact, or it will just depend on the internal structures or the people of the ANC members, who at the end of the day have the deciding votes or have the deciding say as to who exactly should be nominated and should be voted upon come December.
No, thank you very much, Nomusa, for that report. Now let's take a look at how ANC members on the ground see the influence of money over the succession race.
You know, the issue of money is a challenge. However, the ANC has taught us that for any candidate to emerge is through the branches of the ANC. So it's not a matter of whether the person has money or not. So ours is to stick to the principle to say the branches will pronounce themselves, and the delegates to the branches will also nominate or elect the candidate whom they feel comfortable that will be able to push the agenda of the ANC. So whether money is there or not, the ANC will still run, and the candidates who are good for the position will be elected.
Those that will be trying to give people money, they will be giving them an early Christmas. There's no one who's going to give them votes because they have given them money. They know their branch mandates, they know their provincial mandates, so they will vote according to the mandate that they are going to support from their various provinces.
I believe it will definitely have an impact, considering the recent experiences in regional conferences and provincial conferences where there's been allegations of money being used from branch levels, where people will get a token for pronouncing a certain direction, or even also looking at the new profession that we've observed of people called lobbyists, who will be driving around in fancy cars, visiting different branches, championing a certain position. But if you really interrogate people, you find that some of them, they are not politically convicted that this is the person that should be pursued, but they talk more opportunities, privileges, and benefits.
Now, Adil, on this question of money, we're talking money, but somebody at home could easily be saying, well, yes, you're talking about those that are offering money, perhaps getting that early Christmas present. But somebody could still say, you've got to tackle those that are offering their vote. You could still ask the question, those backing with just their vote, what do they stand to gain? Because there could also be that they're looking for positions.
Look, South Africa is a society whereby the poverty that actually prevail at times makes people make decisions based on the amount of money they can gain on those bases. So you have business here, which is not even members of the ANC. Most of the business candidates are actually sitting in the opposition parties. So would you as a party allow your opposition to fund you towards your success, which means once they've funded you, they are going to dictate to you the processes by which you are going to implement, irrespective of what the party decides. Remember, the leaders make the decision not necessarily the party collectively on the implementation. So the scary part of it is when it comes to where it is the crunch is required, it is going to be evident then that really the support which was given was a conditional support on the basis that they wanted financial material rewards. Why is business disinvesting in South Africa when they say they truly believe in the ANC? If they truly believe in the ANC, they would have stayed the course and they would have worked directly with the ANC and putting money in the movement to develop it.
Papano, your take then, because some could still argue that the ANC has always engaged big business. They have gala dinners where they raise funds, so they speak to a lot of business people. Must those business people today now hold on to their purses and say, we no longer want to fund because people will question what's in it for us? And there are also black people that fund the ANC.
I think one thing that must be clear is that the ANC has always positioned corporate South Africa as the enemy of its what they call the National Democratic Revolution. Big business has never been progressive, even though there has been a reality or an admission that in order to grow the economy, you would need big business, to be on board. But the ANC has never considered itself to corporate South Africa. But I want to speak to one of the CEOs who was at Mr. Ramaphosa's event, Stephen Kosov. The late investigative journalist, Barry Sargent, did a lot of extensive research on Investec in particular, and some of the corrupt operations that it continues to do. By the way, Investec spends, each year, it spends more than 20 million set aside for legal services in case they collude, in case they monopolize. But over and above that, Investec is that...
Unfortunately, we've run out of time. Can we just get closing remarks from the Professor? Your closing remarks on this conversation around money and the elective conference?
Fondu, I think what we have here is a situation where big business has vested interest in politics and in our political future, and they will always try to influence political direction. That is part of any political process, and I cannot see what is different to the South African context. Secondly, the current government needs big business to take South Africa forward, to pay taxes, to create jobs, to create economic growth. So I think it is not only necessary, it's of critical importance to get business aligned with government in order to achieve certain goals. Therefore, I believe the strategy of Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa is a good strategy, and at the end of the day, it is also for the interest of the poor people in South Africa.
No, thank you, Professor. Your panelists, if only you could see them, are shaking their heads. But thank you all for joining us. And this is our week's poll question. The question this week is, will the mining charter enable the sharing of South Africa's mineral wealth? Do give us your views. You can check our social media pages there and give us your take on this week's poll question. And that's where we leave it for today. Until next time.